It was already past midnight, and the emptiness inside me deepened with the insomnia. Hoping to turn an ordinary night into something extraordinary, I sat down at my computer and, with a few clicks, entered a video chat site. Talking to strangers might bring the change I needed. However, the first few people I encountered were a disappointment. Nonsensical conversations, meaningless expressions. Over time, I began to grow tired of the faces appearing on the screen. Just as I was thinking of closing the site, a new person appeared on my screen. This person was different from the others. They looked perfectly normal. No weird mask, no camera turned off. Just an ordinary face, a bit tired but with a sincere look. The discomfort within me suddenly eased, and I began the conversation without realizing it. At first, we asked each other's names. His name was Oliver. Talking to the person in front of me turned out to be more enjoyable than I had expected. As the conversation progressed, I began to feel a kind of connection that I hadn't anticipated finding on an ordinary night. We talked about where we were from, where we lived, the struggles of daily life, the movies we liked, and even our childhood memories. Time seemed to fly by, and the bond one was forming with this stranger truly made me happy. However, at one point during the conversation, something caught my attention. The door behind him opened to a dark corridor, and for a moment, there was a noise from that direction. My eyes drifted to the corner of the screen, where the sound had come from. It was as if someone was knocking on the wall. At first, I wasn't sure, so I didn't say anything. I refocused on the screen, but Oliver continued talking as if he hadn't noticed anything. I tried to laugh it off, but a slight unease began to stir within me. I couldn't take my eyes off the background. The brief sound I had heard from the corridor stuck in my mind. We talked for a few more minutes, but that sound kept replaying in my head. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer, and I casually asked, "Did I just hear a sound from your corridor?" Oliver paused briefly, then smiled slightly and said, "No, I'm home alone. You must have heard wrong." At that moment, a strange uneasiness arose within me, but his calm demeanor reassured me. It was probably just an illusion. When combined with the fatigue brought on by midnight, these things could happen. I thought my mind might have tricked me and immediately tried to dismiss the thought. We continued the conversation from where we left off. Our chat was flowing smoothly when Oliver suddenly said, "One moment, I need to go to the bathroom." He left the camera on and left the room. After he left, I kept looking at the screen. An empty room facing me, only closed doors in the background and a dark corridor. I was so absorbed in the conversation that I hadn't noticed how time had passed. I checked the time and was startled. It had been almost an hour since we started chatting. I was surprised that time had flown by so quickly, but I still didn't pay much attention to it. I thought it was just the effect of a pleasant conversation. When I looked back at the screen, my eyes once again drifted to the corridor. At that moment, I saw something. This time, I was sure my mind wasn't playing tricks on me. In one of the rooms with the door open in the corridor, a shadowy figure resembling a human seemed to poke its head out, then quickly retreated back into the room. It was as if someone was hiding between the rooms. My heart started to race wildly. The sight I had just witnessed terrified me. As time passed, my anxiety grew, and I couldn't stop sweating. A few minutes later, Oliver finally returned. When he reappeared on the screen, I could no longer contain my fear and immediately spoke up. "Something happened," I said, my voice trembling. "While you were gone, I saw someone in the corridor. I think someone is there." He looked at me and laughed. "You're joking, right?" he said. with a slight smile on his face. But when he saw the seriousness on my face, his expression changed. He looked around suspiciously. "Hold on, I'll check it out and be right back," he said as he stood up. I waited, keeping my eyes glued to the screen. I could see him checking the doors and looking around the rooms as he walked towards the corridor. Then he entered the room where I had seen the silhouette. A few minutes passed, but he still hadn't come out. I started to worry, thinking that something might have happened to him. I called out, "Oliver," just to make sure everything was okay. When I called out, he came back, shrugged, and sat back down in front of the camera. "There's nothing here," he said, frowning. "Are you playing a game with me? There's really no one here." His voice was firm, but the doubt and fear inside me hadn't completely subsided. "I swear I saw it," I said, but I could sense that my words weren't convincing to him. The person in front of me turned to me with a serious expression. "What you did wasn't funny, you know that, right?" he said, his voice cold and serious. "No, I'm really sure I saw something," I said, but it seemed that my words meant nothing to him. "Whatever, it doesn't matter," he said, smiling. "I'm really glad I met you. Sometimes you say strange things, but it was really a nice chat. It's getting late, I should get to bed. It would be great if we could continue these conversations later on the phone. Could you give me your phone number?" he asked. This offer relaxed me a bit. Maybe I was really overreacting, and with the sincerity of the conversation, I could put this terrifying moment behind me. "Sure," I said, smiling. I started to give him my number, but just then, the power went out, plunging the room into complete darkness. At first, I was a bit startled, but then I reassured myself, knowing that this was a plausible occurrence. Unfortunately, I hadn't been able to give Oliver my phone number. This really upset me. After sitting for a while, waiting for the power to come back on, I thought it would be best to sleep after this strange night. A week passed. One morning, while having breakfast, I turned on the TV. The morning news was talking about ordinary developments until a report was announced. The criminal who kidnapped and killed people he met online has been caught. I flinched as soon as I heard the news. When the criminal's photo appeared on the screen, my heart nearly stopped. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. In front of me was the person I had video chatted with last week. It was Oliver. After turning off the TV, I fell into a deep silence. That night kept coming back to me. The sounds I heard, the silhouette I saw in the corridor, a strange chill crept up inside me. Was the person I saw the victim that Oliver had kidnapped? The fact that the silhouette was so clear and terrifying might have been a cry for help from someone desperate. Then another thought gripped me. What if the power hadn't gone out? At that moment, I would have given Oliver my number, and perhaps I wouldn't be alive right now.